Well, thank you guys. My name is Dokter. I am a two-time alumni at Davenport University. I'm undergrad in marketing, and then I have an executive MBA as well. I personally am not a veteran. My grandfather served in World War II, and my birth mother's husband is a retired Air Force veteran. I've also helped a lot of veterans make the transition once they retired from a career into the military, or a career in the military to transition into a career in real estate investing. Helping coach and get them set up the right way. So, how many people here are in the military or veterans? Awesome. Thank you for your service very much. Thank you for that. How many people here have military in their family? In any way, shape, or form? Yeah, so everybody's related to the kids, so that's fantastic. So, I'm excited about this event. You guys can read the bio list. You have a panel of rock stars here who have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of entrepreneurship, of education, and it's going to be really cool to hear from them. So I'll just sort of go down the line and introduce themselves so you guys know exactly what we're working with and talking to you too, and you can be sure to share me.
My name is Nusser. I'm a senior here at Davenport in the accounting program. I spent 4 years in the United States Navy. Got out of the class gunner's mate, worked on like 5-inch guns, 50 caliber, small arms, security for the ship, things of that nature. I did one deployment in the Arabian Gulf, and I got out in 2015.
Awesome. Thanks.
My name is Erik. Schreur. I'm the current veteran in military service rep here at Davenport. So basically, for any military students that need to go through the admissions process to get to Davenport, I'm kind of their first stop. So I kind of help them with transitioning out of the military, helping them find their way into college life and getting them set up. I'm an Army veteran. I did 5 years in the United States Army. After that, I got out and was a police officer for a year as well. When I was in the Army, I was in military intelligence. So essentially, I did aerial reconnaissance. Got flying around on a plane and used a school $4 million camera, so that was a lot of fun. I did 12 months in Afghanistan, 6 months in Iraq, and had the opportunity to be in Germany for 2 years. And so I was in 19 countries total while I was in service. It was really cool.
Awesome.
I'm Corey Sanders, United States Army 6 years. I did air defense artillery. I shot missiles off the shoulder for the first 3, military police for the last 3, retired as a sergeant. Deployed to Iraq in 2009. I own my own single-man business, Cider Studios. I do software design and tech counseling.
Awesome.
My name is Dana Hill. I'm the current veteran advisor for nursing students here at Davenport, so I'm paid by federal grant, which is pretty awesome. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army Reserves. I served 6 years as a cook. Didn't intend to join as a cook, but worked out well for me. There's 3 people who don't mess within the Army. One of them. I have my bachelor's degree in communications, arts and sciences from Michigan State. I got my master's in management at Davenport, and I will be transitioning to a new role here at Davenport in April also. So
So my name is Weiss. I served the Army for 9 years as a Black Hawk helicopter crew chief for medical evacuation. So what that means is I flew in like a flying ambulance to pick up people on the battlefield. When I got out, I came to Davenport and got an entrepreneurship degree when they were offering that here. And once graduated, I started a small company called Davenport, a shaving company that's still in a startup status.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Boss. I work at Davenport University as the partnership manager of military and college business. So I kind of work alongside with Erik in the admissions side, but also helping with our graduate programs and our college business. Army veteran, 8 years. I was a military police officer and I worked with explosive detection canines. Served a year in Iraq, 2 years in South Korea, searching for explosive devices, IEDs, so on and so forth. I got my degree again from Davenport, Bachelor's of Business Administration Management, and now I'm on my master's degree in management.
Awesome. So like I said, a panel of rock stars, guys. Right? How many people here are going to school for entrepreneurship or management in any way, shape, or form? 3 people? What are the rest of you guys doing?
7,000.
Okay, cool, awesome. So that's great. That's really good. So you have it all the way around. So in the midst of everything, guys, leadership is a key concept, and no matter where you're going, right? At the end of the day, there's a certain amount of things that you can't control and you can't control, and how you respond to your circumstances, either living above the line of responsibility or below the line of excuse, blame, and everything else, and passing the buck. Those are things that relate to any career, right? Any boss, any manager, anybody who you're working with, there's going to be a certain line of responsibility. And I guess, I'm going to open this question up, I guess, just to everybody, because everybody here has had, based on their experience, based on what they've done, plenty of opportunities to lead. And I would be very, very interested to hear the perspective on how you guys all feel that it sort of translates from military leadership to leadership in education, taking care of your own self, getting yourself foundationally set up, and then transitioning that over into either a career in management and working with somebody else, working with other businesses, or building a business for yourself. So really, whomever wants to go on, you guys can all answer that question.
Sure. Yeah, go.
I think one thing that is cool about the military is everyone kind of starts from the bottom, unless of course you come in as an officer. But you have to learn how to start from the bottom and think from that perspective of the person taking orders, and then you slowly work your way up to a leadership role. And I think that kind of translates into real life situations where you can put yourself in the position of someone that you're managing and think just like them. So you can be a better relatable manager.
Kind of learning to follow before you lead. I would say that one of the big things is that once you get into a leadership role, I got out of the Army as an E5, so a sergeant. That's kind of the first leadership level that you can kind of achieve in the military. And in that role, I had about 10 to 11 soldiers underneath my command in my squad at a time, and it taught me really fast that you move from a way of life where you're thinking about taking care of yourself every day to now the needs of the others become more important than your own. So you have to make sure that these guys are able to get their food with their training. You have to make sure that they're able to, get their uniforms. If you're in the field and there's like damages to them and everything, you're constantly thinking about taking care of their needs and what they need first. That translates into the business world too. As a leader in the business world, you have to think about your employees first and what's gonna help them be successful. Because in the end, as a leader, your success comes from the people that you're leading. And without them, you're not going to be anywhere. So it was really important to kind of learn to take care of them first.
And I agree with Erik here. There's times where in the military when you have to lead and you have to assume your role of a leader from even as if one of your leaders step out and be a specialist or any lower ranking and you have to take your role as your sergeant, then you have to assume their responsibilities even as the same rank. And you have to take on their responsibilities, their personal and their professional responsibilities become your own. You always have to be thinking about what are they doing, and you have to accept their losses and as your losses, and you can't just run it as, hey, do this. If you work beside them, work along with them, you can end up becoming more cohesive, a better unit, a better squad, and you can get things done that you never thought you could possibly get done. There's times in the military where when I was downrange, I shot down an incoming rocket that's flying Mach 2, and it needed a team to do it. And it's the consequences and that cohesiveness that comes together as being a leader and then listening to your leader, but also listening to your lower. Listen, communication goes both ways in it. And if you don't have communication, you'll never have a good management skill, and you won't ever have good employees or comrades.
Expand on communication a bit. And the only reason I say that is I have to imagine, and I'm going to have everybody continue with the leadership question too, but communication in the midst of a high-stress situation and free flow of communication, I know you can all speak to that, and how important that is to have everybody on the same page, clicking on the same frequency.
Okay, the communication to me, I had a high stressful situation. When I was downrange, my job lasted 5 seconds. I had to calculate an incoming rocket, geometry, trajectory, make sure the airspace is clear, make sure that everything was good to go to fire, to open up on the rocket, to shoot it down so I could stabilize. You got 5 seconds to do that. During the day, I was on a 5-mile run with my squad. I noticed that there was people scoping out one of our guns. I called up to our EOC. That night I came on shift, I had 5 seconds to react, and I ended up shooting down and saving 800 people's life. Without the communication of me calling up, me confirming the rocket, me talking to the people around me, and across branches too, because we work with the Navy and the Air Force. So we had to make sure the airspace had no aircraft in the air. We had to make sure that the rocket was going to go into the trajectory of where the gun was supposed to fire to shoot it down. So there was a bunch of steps we had to do with communication between all branches, all different ages, all different groups, even people that came from West Point that may not know their job. And there's times where, as communication, if they don't understand, and you have the power to say, no, this is it, I'm sorry, sir, and do it correctly and properly, even talking up the chain of command like I did, and end up getting a shoot down and saving their lives. I mean, I took a risk having to talk to an officer and say, no, sir, this is wrong, I'm confirming that I'm releasing whole fire. There's times where, with communications, that you have to understand that communication up and communication down is very big. If you can't communicate up to someone higher than you and communicate down, you'll never have good communication at all.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. That's fantastic perspective.
I think for me, leadership, especially people, I wasn't in life or death situation, but I mean, if you don't need to start to. For me, I was always in a position of leading without authority. So I had people ranked above me, but I would be in charge of KPs, which are kitchen police. So no one ever wants to be on kitchen duty. You always get an awesome name that doesn't go with the things you want to be doing, because no one wants to be washing dishes all day. So I think coming from a position of understanding and teaching with communication is really important, because you can lead by example or you can lead by authority. So for me, when I had people in my kitchen and I knew they were helping me out, making my job easier, I'd always sneak them some extra cookies or popsicles, maybe an extra portion. But a lot of like what I learned from my leadership styles was how to find a deeper understanding with who I was communicating with. Because most often I'm a female, I'm in the kitchen, I'm in a unit full of guys who lay pipe and work on trucks. And I don't know if you've ever seen a pipeline, but we were out in Virginia where there's ticks and snakes and black bears. Black bears are not nice. And I was always in a nice, I would call it an air-conditioned kitchen a nice place, but I wasn't out in the wilderness. So my last time going to annual training, I got to go out in the field and see what my guys were doing and serve them a hot meal. And that can be changing in itself. So for me, I think in leadership, it's the little things that matter day to day versus the big things, along with accountability. It's easy to take credit for things that you do, but it's harder to take credit for the mistakes that you make. And I think that's where growth comes from in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I love how all of our answers are so parallel to each other. The Army has really taught me to take initiative. As you heard, everyone's taking initiative, and that translates to you guys is take initiative in your education and your job, wherever that may be, because doing 10% more than the average person is going to put you a mile ahead of them when it comes down to any critical situation. It's only you can make you successful, right? Your degree here is going to be a great stepping stone. But if you don't take initiative in building a business or finding that job or doing great in an interview, getting that extra 10%, it really is obvious to the other side of the table, whether that's someone you're interviewing with or if you're negotiating with someone in Japan for your next business deal, right? Communication was critical when I was in the service, as being in an aircraft, there's only 4 of you on the helicopter, right? And you bring wounded on board, you need to communicate to the medic, to the crew chief, to the pilots where we need to go next, right? So communication for me was literally life and death. And so learning how to navigate what's important when you communicate, what is not important, and I was able to use that in my company Battle Brothers, because when I'm negotiating getting steel out of Switzerland or Israel and then bringing it to China or Germany to manufacture something, the language doesn't translate as easily as you'd like it to. So learning those key components of how am I effectively communicating what I need to, is all from the military for me. That's where I learned how to do that effectively.
So can I have you just expand on one little quick point here, but the idea of action mindset around leadership, around taking advantage of opportunities, especially in the midst of the transition, I think, and I know I'm going to have Jason maybe expand on this a little bit more, but because we talked about it before, but I think a lot of times the transition initially out of that camaraderie, that band of brothers or whatever, into something that's completely new can cause a mental stall.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I experienced that. I got out in 2014 in my last service date. Came to Davenport like 6 months later, right? So I'm struggling to find a mission. What do I do, right? How do I define myself? When I came to Davenport, I noticed that there wasn't a student veterans organization. So I went to Jonathan, kind of where Jason used to be, and I was like, hey, let's start like this veteran club. There's this national chapter called Student Veterans of America. Let's spearhead this and make it happen. So I took the initiative in kind of presenting to a small board here. I'm like, look, we can bring in veterans, we can have all these programs, blah, things that come with that. But applying myself to Davenport as a student, I'm here, I'm studying, I'm learning. What else can I do that I see isn't happening? So I took the initiative there, and that was really the spark that started my journey in entrepreneurism. So, sure, I'm not building a business or anything, but I'm learning how to deal with a small budget, how to negotiate with the directors here. Real quick, funny story, someone wanted to donate money to the SBA, right? So they wanted a tax receipt for their tax write-off. So I was like, well, we need to make it a 501(c), right? Make Davenport a nonprofit. Well, Davenport's already a nonprofit. So all of a sudden, the vice president of Davenport at the time called me and said, what are you doing? We're already a nonprofit. We're getting calls from the IRS. So I may have took my initiative too far, but you get the idea. So that's kind of how I reapply myself for a new mission here at Davenport.
That's cool.
Awesome. I agree with what everyone's saying here. And great points. I think what I learned about leadership the most is you have to be a follower before you can be a leader. You need to learn all of those details. And sometimes people have too much initiative. Not saying that Schreur was, but have too much initiative. And it's all about a team atmosphere. And that's military or not. The Army had a slogan of Army of One. I don't know if you guys remember that. Mm-hmm. And that's not just like an army of one person. That's an army of a group, like we're a family that we're togetherness. And I think to be a leader, you really need to learn to follow first. And to add on to transition side, I left service in December of 2012. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have an education yet, and I ended up coming to Davenport because one, it's a smaller school. I got a lot more hands-on experience or hands-on attention from faculty, from all the people, all the staff members, and I think that that's very valuable and is more like a military culture because if you guys don't know, 1% or less than 1% of all U.S. population serve in the military. So it's very small, very tight-knit. We care about one another. We want to make sure that we do the best for them. And that's kind of what we learned within the military is to take care of your brothers and sisters left and right of you and make sure that we're doing the best by them. So my transition actually went pretty well compared to some. Once I finished my degree, I got a job with Steelcase as a manager for a little while. And as soon as the position opened here at Davenport, I jumped on it, working with admissions to help my fellow veterans to make sure that they're being taken care of. And so I feel that transition needs to be better overall, but you can apply that into any type of scenario. Again, we're talking about veterans today, but within the business world, I mean, in my position, I am not successful by myself. I need people around me, my coworkers, to be able to do what I do. And I think that you guys should take that fact and apply it to whether it's studies, whether it's your career after the fact. You really need to make sure that you rely on those people, and when people need help, you help them. And that way, everyone can be successful together.
And in terms of leadership, and then, maybe even just transitioning over into the idea of service and support, right? Everybody here has made the mental sacrifice and past decided to serve the entire country for a period of time. And that's amazing. Somebody, myself, who's not a veteran, I very greatly appreciate that, just because it's individuals like you that make it so citizens like me can complain about stuff I don't understand. So that's fantastic. Now, what I would like, I guess maybe Jason and then Erik to sort of expand on, just because of your positions here, and you as well, just sort of jumping into some of the support that you can offer and have offered for both students and for veterans, and what you feel is important, for people who are veterans transitioning over into either an educational, an educational career, or even going through in their business career. You guys both being advisors and sort of your own right, helping make that transition possible. What are the biggest things that you can communicate to everybody here? So we can, better understand, what that's like for those of us who aren't veterans, and also know exactly, as we're supporting or really serving anybody, what are the key things that we need to do as leaders in our own right to make sure that transitions to people happen smoothly. Please, yeah.
I got a small plug. One of the things that is part of my job is teaching others to understand the military. So on Friday, we are hosting our military simulation, which teaches you as students how to understand the experiences of your fellow veterans. So you can go and sign up on Engage. We really would like to have some volunteers. But the one thing that I would say is creating an understanding of your veteran peers is really important. But also as a veteran yourself, saying that you can have a plan, but that plan may not always go right. And I know that that was one for me, which has really aided me in my job here advising nursing students, because I was going to school for nursing, but my bachelor's degree is in communication. Reason being, I started school in 2005. I told my mom I think I want to join the military, but my dad was in the military, my grandpa's in the military, my whole family was in the military, and my mom said, you're going to school, you're 18 years old, you do not know what you want. When you're an adult, you can make that decision. So I went to school, was going to school for nursing, and then I thought, maybe I'll join ROTC, and I'll become an officer, and I'll go to school for nursing. So I took whatever job I could to take a semester off of school, go to basic training, go to advanced individual training, come back, find a nursing school, didn't go in, and they go, you're old. I was 23. Do you want to keep trying to get into school, or do you just want a degree? And I was like, well, I guess I want a degree. So I changed my major from nursing, graduated, found jobs, ended up here at Davenport, and now I'm the advisor to veteran nursing students who work combat medics, which is what I wanted to join for. So no matter what your plan is, it's going to change.
Yeah. And
if it does change, go with the flow, understand it, find the alternative route, because you can have a plan, but there may be a bigger plan in mind for you. And I think that's been my biggest understanding of transition, is that your success comes with your ability to adapt to what happens to you and the mindset that you maintain.
I like that point that David made about adaptability. I mean, no matter if you're in the military or anywhere, adaptability is huge. But back on the point of what type of successes or rewards we have within the veteran community here. So Erik and I work within the admissions department. So again, we're like the first line for students who are interested in attending the school. And I think it's very important that Erik and I are both veterans in that position, because that's who we're serving here at the school. And we want to make sure that we are relatable to those people coming in, that we have experienced similar things that they have experienced. Everyone has different challenges. different barriers to entry. Like I didn't have college previously, so I had to take a placement test to be able to qualify to get access or entry into the school. Some people have transfer credits. So the services that we provide initially are academic, or related to academic. So we're looking at transcripts, we're looking at any types of educational benefits from the service. But we actually provide a holistic approach because, granted, am I in the medical field? I am not, but I know a lot of information about the VA medical plan. If they're having issues with financial or their finances and they need help, I know contacts through networking to push them out to those people to make sure that they're successful here at Davenport in that home. I'm single, I didn't have any kids at the time. Some people have 4 or 5 children, married. So it's a holistic approach that we provide those services to make sure that they're successful here.
Awesome.
To kind of expand on what Jason's saying as well, I think one of the big things that people need to remember about being in the military is that obviously in the civilian capacity, you get to choose what you want to do during your days. If you want to skip class, you skip class. You have to make that decision to go to class. In the military, you don't get that option. Like you have PT at 6:30 in the morning, you have breakfast at 8 a.m., you have first formation at 9 a.m., you get told you have to do this on this day as like your task for that day. You have your lunch at noon, you have to be back from lunch at 1, you work on your task during the afternoon, and then you have your final formation at 5 p.m., if you're lucky. And then sometimes you have other things like motor pool Mondays. Everybody loves those in the military. You got to do maintenance on the vehicles. You're being told what to do all the time. So when you get out of the military after spending 4 to 5 years in, or even longer, you can kind of forget how to learn how to do things on your own again. You were for the past 5 years been told to be here and be at that place at this time, and you get to college, and then you have to figure out, oh, I have to go into admissions on my own. I have to fill out this paperwork on my own. I'm not having somebody there to kind of guide me as much, or to I have to show up to class on time. I have to learn how to be a civilian again. That transition is extremely overwhelming. For a lot of service members, they can kind of have slight breakdowns during that transition of trying to figure out how to become a civilian again after serving in the military. It is a transition process, and that's what Jason and I are here for. Our sole goal is to help them understand how they can actually fit into the civilian workforce again, how they can actually take the skills that they learned and that amazing ability to show up on time, because in the military, on time is 10 minutes early. So essentially, you learn to take those tasks and those skills and all the abilities you learned in the military and translate that into the civilian world. And Jason and I are here to basically help them through that transition and make sure that they can feel comfortable. I mean, I'll talk to people 3 weeks after they're admitted. Just because I'm an admissions rep doesn't mean that I don't continue to help people. If the student's feeling overwhelmed with class, they'll call me up and I'll help talk them through how Blackboard works. So it all comes down to we're here to help them truly be successful in transition out of the military.
So I want to expand a little bit about what you said in terms of a changing environment, right? Entrepreneurship specifically is something that nothing is ever stable and everything is always changing, always, every single second, right? By the time I get out of this room, things may have changed in my business or circumstances may have changed around my business that I need to plan for now, right? I think it's really cool that you brought that up because a lot of, and it's not just veterans or military, but I think a lot of students in general, with the way our education system is built, you're wound up and then put on this path and this trajectory of what you think, we're going to do at the age of 17. And then we get to a point where things could potentially change or life punches us in the face or whatever it is. Oh,
I'm asking them.
Whatever it might be. And in the military, there's always, contingency plan, right? There's standard operating procedures for something that happens when things go wrong, right? How can you guys transition that concept into any type of daily life situation that they might experience?
I have a good story for that one. When I got out of the military, I got medically discharged for PTSD. So that's something that we probably all have out here that deploy or we suffer with it. So with PTSD, we don't know what we want to do. And like Erik said, when we come out of the military molded us into this person that is institutionalized. It's a dictatorship. It's not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship and a democracy. We can't go out of 300 miles. We can't go home on a weekends. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't drink. You can't fly here. You can't go here unless you're told to.
It is fun though.
It is but with it, you get to do things that you never thought you would do. Like I never thought that I would be at 19 years old firing a $80,000 missile off my shoulder, or shooting down a 120 millimeter rocket flying at Mach 2. Going through a gas chamber, shooting a 209, throwing live grenades. You never think you'll do this. And as you go through and as you learn, you come out and you're like, well, I did this in the military, I wanted to do this. Well, I went in the military, wanted to do military police. My first MOS was Nusser. Don't know how that happened, but it happened. I ended up going to military police, come out, realized I didn't want to do military police anymore. Realized when I was in, they taught me programming. I ended up loving programming, programming units. Was an administrator on the AMBUs for the CRAM. And I come out, I did not want to know what I wanted to do, and I had 3 or 4 contingency options. I wanted to be a firefighter, I wanted to be going into nursing. There was a multiple, I wanted to still help the community. And then eventually you finally get kicked to one side where you end up going into what you truly love to do. And trying to find out what you love to do isn't easy. It's going to take you 2 or 3 quarters in a row. You're not gonna want to just stop. I started at Davenport going into the 2D game design program. I'm going to graduate in May with computer science and data structures and algorithms. I changed 2 years ago, so another fork in the road. And you're always going to have contingency plans if something doesn't go straight. Things happen all the time. Nothing's never set in stone. You could have a good day one day and not so good day the next, and you can't have your home life affect your work life or your school life. You can't have things happen that will push you in one direction and make your whole day go down the drain. There's days in the military where you can see one of your battle buddies die, or you can see one of your friends get hurt or shot, and you still have your job to do. So there's a fork in the road where you have such an emotional situation that you have to continue to push forward. It's your career on the line. It's your education here. So you need to push forward for it. If you fail a test, don't drop the class. If you fail one test, push harder. Try harder. Try to push to get the highest grade you possibly can. Don't ever quit. One of the soldier ethos in the Army is I will never quit. And we from the National Guard all the way to the Navy, I know we all know it. We will never quit. And even now, we have a vet room here, if you guys don't know, that there's a bunch of veterans in all the time. We always talk about stories, or we always help each other, and we're all from different ethnic backgrounds and different branches. And you guys may walk in there and see us yelling and basically cussing at each other, because in the branches, we may hate each other in the military, but it's a fun hate. It's a brother or sister rivalry. But the moment someone from outside the branches start attacking, we're one. And it's just not the Navy with the Navy, the Air Force with the Air Force, the Army with the Army, Marines with the Marines. We're all one. We're all veterans now. We all have experienced what it is to be in war and be the 1% of the population that can serve. So it pushes us to strive. It pushes us to want one step ahead, and pushes us to have multiple contingency plans for one area. Like, you're not just going to go in and say, well, I'm going to do this. Well, what happens if you get injured? I was going to do 20 years in the Army. Got injured, medically retired, had to restart over at 23 years old. Now I'm going to be 30 next year. Starting my own business. Being retired from the Army. Starting my own business. Being graduating and going for my master's. Never thought that would happen.
Adaptability is important.
Yes, I agree.
It is, and I was going to come to you too, because I know you do global stuff.
Yeah, so
and that's
for
a
an
huge thing too.
entrepreneur, stress is constant. Different levels of stress. Sometimes extreme stress, sometimes it's not. When you choose that route, very exciting, can be very rewarding, fulfilling. But to me, your question was more about stress management.
Yeah.
Because there will always be stress situations. Things will always change. For example, so I sell like men's shaving, luxury shaving, grooming stuff right now. We had a brush line that we had made overseas that we got, it was $12,000 worth of brushes. They were all bad. They were all defective, right? And they were selling, they were going out the door, right? What do you do? And so that is super stressful because now you have disgruntled customers, you gotta manage that. And so learning how to cope with that stress is extremely important. Definitely, there were a ton of tools that I learned from being in the military. I think if you know a veteran or an entrepreneur, just ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them something because talking about it is therapeutic. That's why we have therapists, right? So, like, just ask them questions, and I think that would really help them a lot. For myself, I have to take a step back when I have a stressful situation. Kind of reassess, all right, what's going on here? How can I fix it? So when I have a customer that's upset, I give them a full refund, and then I give them free product, right? And that's great customer service. So how can you go above and beyond what they're expecting when something goes wrong? And then in turn, brings them back around, and they either bring you more business or they buy more stuff because, oh, they really took care of me. There's always going to be mistakes. Things are always going to go wrong. You're never going to see every outcome. But being able to pivot and correct the action is really important. But managing that stress, whether that's go to the beach or watch a movie when you need to, or just talk about it, that's what I have to do.
That's awesome.
We have a term in the military that kind of goes along with what he was just saying, and that's adjust fire. So essentially, there's a lot of students in here that aren't entrepreneur students, obviously, and I want to make sure that the ones in here that are marketing and accounting and everyone else understands they go into the business realm in general. You're going to have stressful times. If you're in accounting, you might end up being in a tax firm. Obviously, tax season can be extremely stressful. In a business realm, you might get a sales job. I mean, in sales jobs, you're constantly having to communicate with others. You're having to have deadlines, potentially quotas on your sales. There's always going to be stress. It's really important just to remember that you can work through that. You can adjust fire. If you end up having a client that comes at you and something doesn't go wrong, then just find a way around that. It's kind of that resiliency, and the military is all about teaching resiliency.
So and we'll start here and we'll go on down. And this is a off the cuff question, but what's the number one lesson that you guys feel you've been able to take from what you've learned in the military over into what it is you're doing now or what you plan to do for the next, say, to the project?
I think just basically that there's nothing you really can't do, put your mind to it. And the military is constantly pushing you to be something better than you are and constantly pushing you to try to do something greater than you're already doing. And like you mentioned earlier, when I went to the military at 19 years old, I didn't think I'd be working on $1 million piece of equipment, learning electronics, learning hydraulics, things like that, firing all these different weapons. I didn't think I'd be doing any of that. And I went into my first command day one, and I didn't know anything. I went to school for 7 months. I didn't know anything because I had never worked on it. And by the end of it, I was the lead technician on my ship. So if there's anything I took away from the military is that if you put your mind to it and just put a little effort into what you're doing, you can accomplish any of your goals.
I would say one of the biggest takeaways that I have from the military is that you have to learn, and this doesn't just apply to anyone in the military, it applies to everyone that's not in the military too, is learn to be courageous in your life. Like, make those decisions that are scary to make. Go chase things. Like, try to achieve things that you think are out of your reach. I was a military intelligence soldier. One of my main jobs was obviously analyzing intelligence, providing that to senior leaders so they could make real-time battlefield decisions that are life and death. And a big part of that is that I would actually end up giving presentations to really high-ranking officials, and it just so happened that 6 months into my deployment to Afghanistan, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta arrives, and I had to give a presentation to the Secretary of Defense. That was terrifying. So you have to like step up though, and you have to realize that this is my job. I'm here to do this. And you have to learn to be courageous and to dig deep and find that will to be able to get done what needs to be done. And you all can apply that in your lives here, whether it's academically or for job hunting. Obviously, when it comes time to find that internship or that job, you've been in the comfort of being a student. You have to reach out and go and be courageous. And I would just say, dig deep, find that motivation that brought you to where you are right now. Find the courage that's going to keep driving you and just push.
I have to agree with a lot of Erik said with, you know, him dealing with the Secretary of Defense when I was downrange, integrity was a huge thing. So if you did something, you had to own it. And where I was stationed when I first 6 months of Iraq, I was in what was called a JOP, the Joint Base Operations Cell, and you have generals, multinational corps generals coming in and out all day long. And you have to brief them in a matter of minutes, no matter what. They come in, you have to brief them. They can randomly pop in anytime they want. And you have to have integrity, you have to own your equipment, you have to own your life. That the equipment is your life. So if you have integrity and speak up, if something goes wrong and you're at fault for it, don't blame your teammates, it was your fault. And from working in that and taking away into like the military, going into classes and going into internships, because I worked with, I did a tech internship over the summer with Dr. Moore, and we implemented a new ticketing system for Davenport. Well, there were some of us that couldn't make it. We had to have open communication. I thought communication and integrity to say, hey, this is what's going on, I'm not gonna make it this weekend. And owning up like, hey, I didn't do this, I'm sorry, and you guys help me with it. The integrity from the military is what I think I took away the most.
That's huge, man. That's huge.
For me, I think always work on yourself. I listen to a book for fun, and then I listen to a book for self-improvement. You are accountable for your actions, you're accountable for your success, and surround yourself with successful people. And be around people who are positive, because negativity is the poison. We all have our bad days, but just have your pity party and move on. Because I think that's one thing about the military is, and the transition, is that we're in such a stressful environment. Like, our life is our job. And so it's really easy to dwell on the negative, but if you learn to stay positive, if you learn to take accountability for yourself, and if you really work on yourself, you will find success. But it's all on you. It's no one else's job. So kind of what everyone said is like, own up to your mistakes, learn from them, move on, and keep improving, because good things will happen.
The Army and the military in general, one thing they do extremely well is mentorship. There's always someone above you that can look over you, you can ask questions to, that will give you one-to-one guidance. When I got out, started my entrepreneurship journey, I constantly sought out mentorship. At first it was DU staff. There are a ton of great staff here. There was another student that was like a grade below me, but he was in his third business, right? So I asked him, hey, can we get coffee sometime? Can I pick your brain for questions? More times than not, people will say yes. Most people, if you ask them for a little bit of time for mentorship, they'll give it to you. And this past summer, I reached out to a whole bunch of really huge veteran-owned companies like Black Rifle Coffee Company, Combat Flip Flops, Grunt Style. Those are kind of like the three biggest names in veteran-owned companies. I said, hey, can I have 20 minutes time on the phone Q&A? They all said yes. And some of them are even going to be doing some collaborative marketing together. So here's me on this tiny little company, one guy shop kind of thing, and I'm working with a $20 million company. Just because I asked, I took that risk. Would you give me 20 minutes? And it turned into, now it's a month of home marketing, right? So don't be afraid to ask someone that you may think is outside of your circle or your social status or your economic status. That doesn't matter if people don't see that. So mentorship.
And before you go, Jason, I just want to reiterate that that's one of the biggest things. If you really want to get good at something, find somebody who did that thing and then ask them how they did it. Do exactly what they did, or at least a version of it that applies to you. because that's a huge thing. The unfortunate part is, I think a lot of times when we're growing up, we're taught not to ask for things, right? Don't approach that person and ask them, but I don't ask that question. It's, we're taught some of those things sometimes, and it makes us uncomfortable reaching out to people who are complete random strangers, or sending that email or whatever else it might be, because somebody might tell us no. There's only really 3 answers, yes, no, or maybe, right? So you got a 33% chance of somebody saying no anyway, might as well ask the question, right? So I think that that's awesome, and I think that that's absolutely huge in terms of anybody wanting to get to that next level. You are only able to sort of see to your specific perspective and your 5 closest friends. So having that outside perspective is absolutely huge, and I've seen many people in many different industries be able to break through a ceiling that they didn't think they could break through because they had a coach or a mentor or somebody pushing them farther than they thought they could go, right? Encouraging them to be able to take that next step, and they ask for that initiative, so it's awesome. Thank you for that.
Can I expound on that?
Yeah.
Sorry. So the root of that is the fear of rejection, right? Don't be afraid to be rejected in business or life or whatever, right? Because getting past that fear is going to open up a huge door of opportunity. Everyone fails. We all fail. No one remembers other people's failures. We only remember our own failures, right? And we kind of like relive it in our head sometimes. But nobody cares about that. And failure is super important to learning. I failed a couple businesses. Jason helped me work on one with a green energy company that I won tons of money for, and these competitions, we had all these things going on. Huge failure, right? 2 years of building something, but I don't look at it as, oh, I spent 2 years of my life and it failed. Because 2 years of my life and I learned so much on different ways to succeed, right? It's the whole Thomas Edison thing. I didn't, that's what it is. Anyway, I'll stop talking now.
Lots of times to make a little while.
And to kind of piggyback on what Andrew said, it's okay to fail as long as you're not making the same mistakes. You need to learn from your mistakes, learn from those failures. I'm sure you have. But a couple things that I have taken from my military experience: one, discipline. Making sure that you're, again, people have already said, being accountable for your own actions, but also you're accountable for other people's actions too. Maturity. Maturity is a huge one. And I would like to say at 22, 23, I was very mature. But honestly, I probably would be lying to myself if I said that was the truth. And you get that maturity from the responsibility that you get, from partnering with other people, making sure that we take care of one another, and then finally being resourceful. And they already kind of tap into that, using your resources, networking with people, and making sure that if someone can help you and clear that path for you or remove a barrier, you're just going to make yourself just that much more successful, but also return that favor. Because you're going to see that down the road where someone needs your help, and make sure that you help remove those barriers and make them successful too.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. We're going to move into some Q&A here in just a half second. I'm going to ask you guys for sort of your final thoughts. I guess it's kind of similar to the last question, but it doesn't necessarily need to be military related. But if there was one thing in 30, 45 seconds, if you guys had one thing that you could communicate to the 30, 40, 50 people that are here, from your perspective with what it is that you do every day, and one thing you wish someone would have told you to this point, what would that one thing be?
Let me go first. Honestly, when you're younger, you tend to think about yourself first and you can forget about others. Just remember that it's a big world out there, there's a lot of people, and you might be able to change somebody's life tomorrow, today, 5 minutes from now. Just if you can see somebody that has that need, that they need to be helped, if they have something that concerns them, if they have something that you can see that they're in trouble and they need assistance, just ask if you can help. Just care. It's in the military. That's a huge portion of what we do as leaders. Is we're making sure that the people underneath us are cared for and that they can do their jobs effectively, so that we can all, as a unit, cohesively move along. It's no different in the civilian world. You see somebody that needs help, care for them. Do what you can to help.
Have thick skin.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the biggest things you see that nowadays, as people don't have thick skin. One word hurts them, and they get all upset, and they cry, and they run away. Don't ever give up. If you get a bad feedback from a teacher on paper you write, Don't take it personally. Take it as a compliment that he's taking this time out of his day to show you, hey, this is what you did wrong. So never give up. And don't take everything to heart. Don't wear your heart on your sleeves, because if you do, you're going to get hurt every single time.
I think I've learned in my job as an advisor is don't be quick to judge. Don't be quick to judge others, because you never know what someone may have going on in their life. And it can be anywhere from their mourning, they lost someone, or it can be like they've really gone through something traumatizing and they're just trying to get through their day. So, you know, if you're behind that person or that person's tailgating you and tells you to just be like, hope your day gets better and move on. And I know like we're not all perfect at it, but just don't judge, because you never know, like you can find a commonality or a best friend in someone if you just find what's going on first.
Get involved is what I want you to take away. My success isn't special to me. I'm not special with my successes because I worked really hard, got involved in my involvement. I build relationships. And in those relationships, they're going to be the people that answer the questions, the challenges that you face.
I was going to kind of say relationships myself too, but educate yourself. Things aren't going to be handed to you throughout your life. You have to earn them. You have to work for them. And the best way to do that is do the research. Go out and find resources that could help you. Andrew already did that with his company, but he found 3 other companies that were successful and asked for their help. But I mean, they're not just going to go contact Andrew because they see he's an up-and-coming business. They're not going to do that. So you got to go do that work. You need to make sure that you're being resourceful and that you're putting in that extra effort. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think back off of that, just use your resources. There's so much available here at Davenport that a lot of people just don't even know about. So, and also, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are things that you're not going to understand, and someone will be willing to help you out with those things if you're just willing to ask for them.
Yeah, and for me, guys, it's take action, right? Action mindset is huge, no matter what it is. Take action, take ownership, fail often and early, and like Jason said, don't fail the same way twice. You can fail a different way, but don't fail the same way twice, right? Learn and fail forward with everything you do. And to piggyback on the other idea too is gratitude. I heard the idea of gratitude be communicated a lot here throughout this panel. I'm extremely grateful that I got to learn from you guys today. So thank you very much. So, we do want to open it up for any questions that you guys might have for us as it relates to, yeah, please.
Looking out over the bloodiest battlefield in U.S. history, Abraham Lincoln said, "We here highly resolved that this nation under God a new birth of freedom, and a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, will not perish from the earth." And I'm wondering, just having had the election yesterday where we have all had the opportunity to participate in that government of the people, by the people, for the people. Those of you who've been overseas and have seen other governments where people don't have that freedom and that responsibility, do you have a new appreciation or any new insights that you can share us about our own country that we live in compared to these other ones?
We have it good.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience. I mean, I've been to 19 countries. I was in combat zones from Afghanistan to Iraq. I was in Kuwait for a period. I've been to countries you probably can't even find on a map, like Kyrgyzstan. So there's countries all over the world and they all have different governments. And I can tell you, first and foremost, that here in America, we have it very, very good. Now, obviously, we're a nation that can be very divided. You see it before elections. People are like red, blue. It's all over the place. In the end, it doesn't matter. It's all a checks and balance system. We're all here to make sure that we can have a good government. And one of the best things about our government is the fact that there is some level of division between red and blue. It's healthy. If there wasn't some form of division, then one power would have too much, and then there wouldn't be like a lot of the other countries around the world that are dictatorships and everything else. So no matter how we vote, just vote. It's important. I mean, it's all a checks and balance system, and let you know that we have it very good compared to other countries around the world.
Mine's a little bit different. I didn't deploy, but I traveled abroad studying World War II, the history and horrors of the Holocaust and the American German battle front. So I went to Bastogne, I went to Normandy, I went to England. As you mentioned, I went to Gettysburg just this year. Learn from our history. History is important because if you don't know history, it will repeat itself. If you walked through Buchenwald concentration camp where people were literally burnt to death or burned in a crematorium, if you walked in a crematorium, it is life-changing. Because the only thing at Buchenwald that exists is the prisoner gate and the crematorium. Not where they enslaved people, not where they murdered people, not where they killed people. Other countries, they don't serve ice. I mean, the simple things that you can take for granted that we have here are so important, but learn from history and learn. History is important because if you don't learn from it, it will be repeated, just like making mistakes.
I would just like to say, with the voting, when I was in Iraq, we would go and patrol and make sure that voters were safe, that they could actually go and vote without being blown up or shot at. Granted, anything can happen in this country. You can go get in a car accident on your way home, but you could go pretty much anywhere relatively and not have to worry about your safety, not worry about someone preventing you from doing a simple task like voting. So we do have it the best. I mean, the U.S. really, there's a lot of luxuries that we all take advantage of until you see some situations from other countries. I'm going to laugh because that's awesome.
I want to piggyback off of that. It's people that have never left the U.S. or have never been overseas. They are in one set mind of what the United States is. And once you go overseas and you see what a dictatorship can do to a country, what a divided country is actually capable of doing, and the killings and everything, it changes your perspective of what you have over here. And it can create an everlasting change on you to see a country that was a dictatorship go through a democracy and fail, and then go back to a dictatorship, or go to something where they've been in war for 2,000 years, like the Afghan people. It's very, very humbling.
Excellent question. Thank you for that.
Two things actually. One, I want to make a statement of some of my own experience as far as leadership and stuff. That's good for you guys.
Please, yeah.
So I myself just recently transitioning out of the military. Two of the probably really important things I pulled out of it that I got from my military experience. One, organization. There hasn't been a single job interview, a single meeting with anybody I've showed up with that if I was organized, I had my ducks in a row, they were really impressed with it. So that's definitely one really important thing. And the second one that I learned from my Marine Corps experience, I did 2 years of presidential support program in Washington, D.C. And lots of junior Marines and lots of officers were stationed there. And one thing my gunny always told me is always prepare for the job ahead of you. You know, if you're a Lance Corporal, prepare for that next promotion. Make sure you're doing everything you can to prepare yourself for that leadership position because it's eventually going to be yours. You're eventually going to move up, and you need to be prepared for that before you even get there. As for my question for you guys, when transitioning out of the military, what was probably the hardest thing for you coming out in the civilian world with being entrepreneurs and business managers? How can they help veterans they're going to be dealing with as well who are transferring out of the military?
I think my biggest struggle when I was transitioning was just simply knowing the steps to take to get where I wanted to go. And, luckily, Davenport is great. School with great resources to help you achieve those goals. And hopefully, if you leave this place as a veteran, and you start your own business or become a manager, you're able to help those following in your footsteps and get back.
I had a little bit different of a transition. About 3 weeks after I left the Army, I went to the police academy. So it went from one very structured environment to another. And I graduated from KBCC Police Academy, and then I was an officer in Holland for a year after that, before I decided to come to Davenport and pursue my education and land here. But just from that transition side, it can just be very, very overwhelming. So it's just one of those things that if you know a veteran that's transitioning, just offer to help them. But I believe these guys may talk about the entrepreneur side.
It takes a lot, because if you don't know what you're doing and coming out, you're null. You don't know. You're used to being told what to do day in and day out. So coming out, it was kind of that point of what's my next step. I can't just say, put someone on the right and say, hey, what should I do? I have to go research it. You have to take that time to put the effort in to find out what you need to do to start a company and what you need to do to get where you need to go. So it's the okay, you may not have that mind-numbing moment where you're like, oh, what do I do? Well, research it. There's a lot of people, like when I first came out, I didn't do anything for 3 months because I just didn't know what to do.
Work ethic. Work ethic of yourself and what you expect of others. I started at Davenport, interviewed, worked for a week, went to annual training for 3 weeks because I was a cook. I always went early, left later than everyone else, had a convoy for 2 days, 24 hours between here and Virginia. Came back, started my job, and I just would look around and like, why are all these people so lazy? Well, I had to understand that what I expected of myself was not what was expected of others, and I can only do what I can control. So I still have that problem where I work myself into the ground. Work-life balance just came up in work this week. So always learn, expect what you want of yourself, but not always of others.
It's kind of a tough question for you. There's so many different ways to go. But as a student, be patient with the non-veteran students because they don't understand what experiences have gone through. So take that, if you get frustrated, take that and turn it into an opportunity to be a leader and be nice. I wasn't very nice, and I made a lot of friends my first year. I was so gung-ho on my mission. I was like, get on my way, I don't need you, but I was so wrong with that. I needed that.
It's a great answer. I kind of experienced the same thing, but I'd say use your support systems that you have, whether that's family, friends. That's what I did. And the transition period, you know, ACAP and the Marines, they might call it something different, but it's your transition period. They give you a couple of weeks to learn everything you need to know about leaving the military and transition to the civilian life. And what you're concerned about is where am I going to live? What money am I going to have? I mean, what job am I going to have? And there's a lot of things that can really put you, behind the eight ball. But I use the resources that I have. Again, I go back to the resource, but family, friends, they put me up in a house for a couple of months so I can get my feet, underneath me again, because that's a tough thing that everyone struggles with when they leave service. How do I move forward? How do I adapt to an environment that I'm not used to anymore?
You can feel free to move on to the question. I think the second part of my question was a little confusing. What I was actually asking was, what advice do you have for people who are going to be managers and entrepreneurs who are going to be working with veterans who are transitioning out as to how they can make it easier for a veteran?
Time was military simulation. I'll be hosting it. We need some signups, and I really think it will answer your question because it's important to put yourself in someone else's shoes to understand it. And the military is not something that we can teach because everyone has the same timeline. Not everyone has the same experience. One person's basic training is not another. You worked, like you said, in Washington, D.C. So transitioning, the one thing that I have found the most is like what everyone has said, resources. Go to networking events, meet people. I mean, there are things in my job, like I went to the career fair last year because my students are nursing students, but they're also working and they're managing their life. So be willing to help others and spend your time to go out of the way for them because that's how you can help others. Patience, understanding. I mean, I had a student that was driving their feet to get something. I had a contact. I called them, and within 10 minutes, I had what they needed. Now, yes, they pushed it to the last because I was trying to get them to do it, but did I have an ace in the back to help them out? Yes. So, resources, time management, anything like that.
Now, are you looking to start your own business, or you?
Oh, no, I was more like, this would probably be something good for people who aren't used to dealing with veterans.
Yeah.
Being it's mostly an entrepreneur, business management area.
I have a great resource. So we're part of a lot of different community action teams, veteran community action teams. There's one here in West Michigan. So West Michigan Veterans Coalition, where community partners, and they're not all veterans. come to learn about veteran services, what they can provide veterans that work for in their organization. And if you'd like to come, I can probably invite you. That's quarterly. Anyone else who is interested in going to learn about what services, and we're a network of family, to make sure that if I don't know about healthcare, someone there is from healthcare in the healthcare field and can provide those services, or at least network or connect you to someone who can help.
Any other questions? Yeah.
They can be anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be business or a business. Who is in, going to school, they're like, I want to start a female boss, they start something. Do you have anyone in there?
What are we all going to school for? So it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, maybe. Yeah, like furthest want to start like working for a company and see how.
Yeah.
What would you do if you could?
Good question. I don't know yet.
Okay, that's fair enough. Go ahead.
What's that? Okay.
Very cool.
I do got a question for you guys. What do you think, out of all of us, as a veteran, what do you think is the one question that us as veterans do not like the most?
I actually, I'm not going to answer that because I'm better, so I'll leave it to everyone else.
What do you think that question is?
The person that y'all receive the most that y'all don't like.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen somebody like they hurt really bad, or have you ever?
Yep, that's the question. And being asked that question to us, we don't want to say it. I know people that have 15, 16 kills confirmed, and they don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. It's one of the things that we dread to think about, because in the military, we may come out and we may seem normal, but our first job in the military is train killer. And it's hard to come out as someone that's trained to kill, to come back to a civilian life and start over. And to become a business entrepreneur, go into education, to do this stuff, it takes a lot of mindset, dedication, and focus, and stress it's gonna always be there on us. And to move forward and never quit and always progress farther and never take a step back. If you fail forward. If you fall forward. Take that initiative. Take the jump into an area you may not know. And you may end up loving it. If you never went scuba diving, go scuba diving. If you never jumped out of a plane, go jump out of a plane if you want. I mean, take the initiative and go where you're uncomfortable, because you're never going to be comfortable in the workplace. You're always going to be put in situations that make you very uncomfortable.
It's good.
You guys have fun questions too. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm just, military's a lot of fun. I don't want you to think that it's all gloom and darkness. I got to travel the world. I got to see 19 countries. We got to go party in countries where we don't even know the language. I mean, it's like fun. So I'm just saying, you can ask other questions.
There's a lot of cool people in the military. I've met
Lifelong friends.
Yes. And we're family. And even if we're not in the same branch, and maybe I can speak for everyone up here, we all see each other as family. No matter if we're in or out, past, future, present, soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, we're family.
If you ever hear us listen, like if you're ever listening in on a conversation between us, you don't really understand what's being said, but you want to know, just ask. Because we can all sit and start having a conversation talking a language you probably will not understand. But a lot of the times we have fun things, fun experiences that we did get to do. And, you know, just like I said, Dr. Bailey's back here, who was part of it, but she's a huge veteran advocate here at Davenport. She actually has earned 2 big grants in support of veterans in the VA, which is why we have a military simulation. So if you do have more questions, please feel free to ask. We would love to have both capacities. This week, on Friday, it's from 9 to noon, you receive a certificate of participation, but you will learn a lot about what we have talked about here, and especially how to connect with other veterans, but develop your own deeper understanding too.
come by the Veterans Lounge and say hi too.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, we just want people to come in, say hi, hang out, it's, you're more than welcome. We do donuts and coffee, like, at least once a month, maybe twice a month, and so just come on in.
Don't, our language, we may seem professional up here, you go in that
Early morning.
early morning now, you go in that veteran zone, you're gonna hear more cussing come out of people's mouths that.
That's not an official Davenport endorsement.
No. We're very professional people when we talk, but when you get a bunch of military people together, the language starts coming out because there's times where I catch myself and I have to tell my kids, hey, I'm sorry.
Well, very important birthdays this weekend, isn't
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah,
You have
that's
any
a question.
answers? Oh, yeah. Just anything off the cuff that you want to know about the military, about one of our professional experiences or anything? Yeah. Oh, David, what you got?
It's more of a life question, I guess. So, as students, or as humans, I suppose, whenever we do something, maybe a homework or jobs, we always try to do our best. In my mindset, there's two types of drive as to why I want to do my best. It's not the healthiest kind because usually I try to do my best because I'm afraid of failing. I'm trying to improve that though because another type of mindset why I do my best because I want to be successful. Now my question to you is, in the military, obviously you want to do your best, but in the risk of failing doing that particular job you're assigned to, how do you keep a positive mindset that you want to do your best so that you can be successful instead of failing? Because there can be a situation where if you fail, you might lose a life or you might lose a very expensive equipment. How do you keep a positive mindset that you do your very best so that you improve yourself or to be successful?
Just a quick thing on that is that one of the biggest mentors, and there's a lot of mentors in the military, it's really important, but start with Professor Hogan. He once told me, it's like, you failed, good, now go fail again. So he was essentially trying to get me to realize that a failure isn't a setback, it's an opportunity to learn and move forward. So if you fail at something, just figure out what you did wrong, maybe speak to somebody about what went wrong, and then learn how you can just not do that again and then move forward.
Yeah, they also teach you, so after any operation of any type, we have something called an after-action report. We list what went well, what didn't go well, what can we improve on. So instead of talking about, we screwed up over here, we talk about what we could do better next time. We talk about what went really well. Right, this element went great, we continue doing it like this, and then what was the other one?
Improvements,
thank you. Anyways, you get the idea.
Your answer to school, I did fail. I failed getting into nursing school. I took ROTC to become an officer because I chose to support my then fiance, now husband. My failures led to where I am today. So I don't look at failing at getting into nursing school as a failure because it was something that I didn't have planned for myself. But it was a plan that led me in a direction that I'm extremely happy now. So failures never, it's how you learn from it. So don't be scared to fail, just make sure that when you do, correct it and move forward. Because if you fail and you continue to fail, you'll stay in the negative mindset versus look at what can come out of it. So I did fail in school. I mean, I didn't get into nursing school, I didn't have great grades, and now I advise nursing students. So, my failure, I'm advising people not to fail.
Fail positively.
Right.
Yeah, I think
That's the best way I can say it, fail positively. You may fail, but think of it positively, okay, this is how not to do it. This is how I can improve it.
a lot of times people have, I think, again, a perspective just based on all the inputs that have come into their life, their surroundings, and how people have to this point sort of judged them or gauge them based on their successes or failures. I had a really great mentor one time say that failure is feedback. That's all it is. It's just feedback, right? There's inputs and there's outputs. You put something out into the universe, you get feedback back, right? It's either positive or negative. That's all it is, right? So with the feedback, all you do is you got to think bigger picture. right? Don't think right now very minuscule, think bigger picture. Okay, this is feedback on something that I've done, something that I've not prepared for, something this, something that, whatever else it is. And think of it again in terms of the bigger picture moving forward. I saw another hand go up over this way. Yes, sir.
I'm curious why you guys chose the branch you chose.
Go ahead, if you're ready.
So, a lot of people in my military branch know my third cousin's General Pat. So I was a family choice. I had no other choice really. And my family has always been in the military, and I wanted to keep that tradition. And it's always been Army.
My grandpa was in the first Special Service Forces in World War II. So if you ever hear the Green Berets, that was my grandpa. Dad's a retired full-bird colonel from the Army. He was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Army Airborne Ranger. I tried to join the Air Force. They wouldn't take me because I had medical, so Army it was. So continuing down the path of it's not always your choice, but I think it built a bigger connection with me and my dad than I could have ever expected, and it's a lot of fun to become a civilian husband with my dads.
I think a lot of service members will say family impacted your decision probably on what branch they decided to go into. I wanted to be a Marine. I thought they had the coolest uniforms.
It's really funny you say that. Because, I have a grandpa who was in the Air Force, and then I had an uncle who was in the Army. And the only reason I went in the Marine Corps is because I wanted to be better than all of them.
So I originally wanted to be in the Marines because, everybody saw the commercials back in the day where a Marine climbed a cliff and killed the dragon with a sword. Come on, it was cool. Yeah. So I wanted to be a Marine, but in the end, my dad was a scout sniper in the Army. I had about 5 different relatives that have all been in the Army. Had one uncle who was in the Navy, we won't talk about him. In the end, that Army influence in my family really directed me to go into the Army. I don't regret it. It was the best decision I ever made.
So I can see the world.
Well, nice to meet you guys.
I would comment on the Marine Corps, but it's a group environment, but probably I'll tell you very well better tell you something different.
In the lounge.
What family again too, and all services are great. Obviously with the Army, there's more MOSs or more jobs that you're able to, because the Army is the biggest military branch that we have. So there's more jobs, and that's why I chose the Army.
That's why I do something cool. Something cool, like what's cool? Well, flying is cool, right? Being in a military aircraft, and then you mean I get to sit while I'm doing my job? So I decided I flew in Chinooks and Black Hawk helicopters, but sit and cool machine.
The job does play a big factor. I was also on an air crew, so I flew on what's called a Dash 7 air reconnaissance aircraft. And like I said, you had to operate that $4 million camera on the bottom. The moment I learned I could just sit in this race car seat with a computer panel and actually had a laser designate targets for airstrikes, I was hooked. I knew that, yeah.
All these guys will give me crap, and I never had to eat an MRE again.
That's all experience.
MRE is meal ready to eat, for those that don't know. It's like packaged meals are dehydrated.
I keep a couple in my car and
3,000 calories.
Right. And there's cracker eating contests and stuff like that, but I also I'm lucky because I always got to know everyone that I worked with. I knew all the faces in not only my unit, but my battalion. I got to go cook for generals, and I won an Army cooking competition, which, there's a couple of faces in here that I've actually fed as students, because I know that, so, fun stories on what we can do, especially with people in the military.
when I enlisted, I wanted military police. They're like, well, that job's not open. Well, we have air defense artillery. I was like, okay, what's the MOS? Like, you want to fire a missile off your shoulder? What? I can do that? Yeah. Sign me up. Go to basic match. Here, have an $80,000 missile down, fire at that remote control aircraft. Okay. Just hesitate. When you see $80,000 disappear, you are very happy.
We always jokingly say though that as soldiers, sailors, Marines, Air Force, and everything else, that we have a secondary MOS, and that's janitor.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
in the military, you spend a large portion of your time, whether it's cleaning the barracks, cleaning the, swapping the decks, whatever you want to call it in the Navy, I don't know. I'm not but basically, it's like, you become a professional janitor. I mean, any skills your mom didn't teach you when you were in there, I mean, you get out and you can just be a custodian anywhere.
Yep, you can wax the floor.
People come into your house and a friend of mine was like, did you just clean because you came here, or is it always this clean? Like, no, it's always this clean.
I have 2 kids. I have friends come over like, where's your kids? There's stuff in the room. How do you get them to pick up? Well,
Standard operating procedure. Hey guys, thank you again. Big hand for these panels. Thank you to Vivian and the crew who put this all together. Dr. Moore, Dr. Duzak, which is awesome. Thank you for that. And to Davenport University for providing this type of stuff. We'll be around here for another few minutes if anybody else has any other questions for us in the
We
video.
also have